briefing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gail Black. I'm a partner at Gaydens in the Property and Construction Group. Gaydens would have been hosting this morning's breakfast, but for the lockdown that started on Saturday. I'll be moderating the panel session that will be after our keynote presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of all of the lands on which we join this Teams meeting in today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Property Council relies on the support of individuals and organisations from across the property industry who generously share not just their time but also their resources so that we can promote the interests of the sector as a whole. The Queensland corporate partners exemplify this commitment and through the Property Council make a major contribution to promoting the interests of the entire property industry. The Property Council would like to acknowledge and thank the 2021 Queensland corporate partners. The PCA's Industrial Committee is continuing to identify ways to navigate the increased demand for industrial property, including factors that have arisen from the pandemic. On the committee's agenda for the year is inland rail project stakeholder engagement, identifying key catalytic infrastructure projects to support industrial property in southeast Queensland, and activating surplus government land. But one of the key focuses for the PCA's Industrial Committee has been putting together a submission on Council's draft industrial strategy, Our Productive City, Brisbane Industrial Future, and also Amendment K, which are both open for consultation. In recent weeks, the PCA has engaged with the Brisbane City Council during the consultation process, including Sharon Nicol kindly joined us at the July meeting, and last Tuesday, Sharon, together with members of her team and some members of the committee, inspected industrial sites across Brisbane, including the DHL Distribution Centre, an online fashion retailer, and a tyre retreading facility, the only one remaining in Queensland. We are thankful for the opportunity to engage with Council to show them the diversity of the industrial property across Brisbane and look forward to working further together on these matters. We are very fortunate today that our keynote speaker is Deputy Mayor Councillor Krista Adams. Krista was elected as councillor for the ward of Wishart in 2008. In July 2010, she was appointed Chair of Council to preside over the Council meetings and be responsible for enforcing the standing orders and to ensure orderly conduct in the Chamber. After the 2012 election, Krista was appointed Chair of Brisbane Lifestyle Committee, where she oversaw festivals, events and community services in Brisbane City Council. Following the 2016 electoral boundary changes, Krista now represents the Holland Park ward and was appointed Chair of the Finance Committee. In 2019, she was appointed Deputy Mayor and Chair of Public and Active Transport, Economic and Tourism Development Committee. And following the 2020 council election, Krista was reappointed as Deputy Mayor and given the responsibility of Chair, City Planning and Economic Development Committee. We also congratulate you, Deputy Mayor, on your recent announcement that you'll be the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Chair of Brisbane City Council. After her presentation, Krista will be joined by Stephen Mason, Principal in Planning at RPS, and Daniel Brecken, General Manager, Queensland for Goodman, for our panel Q&A session. And Di Curry and Peter Harwood from Council will also be online to join in those discussions. We thank you all for your time today, and it now gives me great pleasure to hand over to the Deputy Mayor, Krista Adams, for her update. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. And it's a bit of a long spiel. I'm going to have to start cutting down all the things I have done in council. But on the upside, it does mean I have been across a lot in council, and it's fantastic to be here today with the opportunity to present and participate in the panel discussion. The industrial economy has always been a critical part, obviously, of Brisbane as a river city, as the capital of Queensland, and I think even more so now we really need to ramp up and plan our operations and global positioning as we come in to be an Olympic city. So what we are trying to do with this industrial strategy is actually look at how we need to make changes prompted by the disruption of COVID. We recognise that there are new opportunities that we can take in Brisbane. We have an evolving role in southeast Queensland as the capital. Obviously, we've got the majority of the population down here, but we also need to look at how we, as I said, shape going into that Olympic year in 2032. We obviously have those opportunities from what I was planning to say from the disruption of last year, but it doesn't seem like the disruption has stopped. But there's also emerging local and global trends that we've seen, particularly in the technology of industrial sites and what we see as traditional industry as well. We're also looking at a regional view of this. How does Brisbane's industrial areas work alongside our regional counterparts? Are there some areas that maybe as a capital city we don't have within our LGA border, but we work with our surrounding councils to make sure as a region, as South East Queensland region, we are providing all of the industrial needs for the southeast corner. And of course, as I mentioned, the technology, we've got that advanced approach that we really need to look at precincts and what they can provide for us as well. We know that we've got to have a degree of flexibility. That's very, very important. And that transformation will come as we see the changes and the opportunities that the Olympics bring as well. What we've done so far is engage with a wide range of external and internal stakeholders. We've had working group workshops, which many of you may have been on as well. They were attended by key industry groups and stakeholders. We've met with surrounding local governments, numerous Queensland government departments and the federal government as well. We've also met with academics, industrial businesses, UniQuest, who are all involved in commercialising ideas that come from research and development as well. The key takeaways you see here are identified here on the screen. Recognising that industry is constantly evolving and our policy environment needs to be flexible to make sure we enable the sector to prosper. Obviously, infrastructure is a key to enabling growth, and amenity is becoming increasingly important for people that are actually working in these areas to make sure that they enjoy where they're working as much as what they're doing as well. From the feedback and the research undertaken, we started to think about the importance of industry in Brisbane at both a local, regional and a global context as well. Our research has looked at global trends that influence industry, and as we mentioned before, a big impact on industry has been the last 18 months of the coronavirus. But then that has also seen the opportunities emerge of new products or reshoring of manufacturing as well. Technology is changing the way many industries operate, reducing our manual labour and changing the built form requirements too of what industrial buildings actually look like. Knowledge continues to permeate the industry with research and development, where it's driving the startups and the scale-up businesses. And globalisation has meant that Australia is trading with a range of different countries. Our workforce is changing. There's a lot of diversity, and it's got to have agility, and there is expectations of what their workplace and their employers provide for them as well. So with an increased demand for products that are sourced and produced locally, there's also high levels of customer service around delivery or timing as well. So why is industry so important in Brisbane? With the draft strategy reviews three major components, which are all very important to the economy. As you can see here, production. Goods produced domestically are important to maintain our quality of life, secure our supply chains and maintain a diversity of jobs. The consumer, the demands for the distribution of goods quickly and with few impacts on our road network. Everybody is buying online and they expect to get it within 3 days, if not sooner. And of course, service as well. We've got growing residents and business populations, and they rely on making sure they have a service of the industry, they can repurpose and they can repair goods as well. One of the most important aspects we think of this review was to really understand our regional position and what is our competitive advantage, what sets us apart from Moreton, Logan, Ipswich and others in southeast Queensland. Why do people choose Brisbane, and what makes our industrial areas more attractive for businesses and workers as well? We know, and everybody online I'm sure knows, that our lifestyle and amenity are a key attractor for any workers across Brisbane, but we need to make sure that we attract the skilled workers as well. We've got the largest local government in Australia. I am proud to say we are well managed and we are an administered city. And that gives us access to a large pool of skilled workers who have exceptional educational opportunities as well. Our port and our airport provide us with excellent connectivity to the region. So we do have some of that infrastructure there for interstate and globally. And we know our strong services economy mean we're important in corporate and logistics hubs. So that's really become something we've seen as a specialisation over the last 18 months with the changes we've seen. We also know that a successful city relies on a network of productive places so that they can work together to make sure they get the economic value and output that is needed. It doesn't matter whether you're in an inner city or a middle ring or on the outskirts of Brisbane in neighbouring councils. Every precinct serves a bit of a different but also complementary function as well. And by better connecting these productive places in industrial areas, we can see a lot more significant addition to Brisbane's economy. So, what does our future industry look like? What we know is that there has been a significant shift in our industrial activities, as I mentioned before, around the knowledge and the technology as that permeates into the sector as well. We expect to see more niche manufacturing like biotechnology, biomedical, bioengineering, food technology. Prop tech is one that's big at the moment. Our warehouses and distribution businesses will be increasingly automated, and all our businesses will see worker skills and value increase. And I think we've seen that without workers coming from overseas and backpackers, the importance of those workers, skilled or non-skilled as well. And we do think that there is a big link between research and development and industry that is going to demand a lot more spaces for ideas to turn into startups and scale-ups as they're commercialised as well. So the draft strategy has three main sections that we're focusing on. Our productive city, Brisbane's industrial future, is being named that for a very specific reason. We want to create great places into the future. We want to see a culture of innovation and we want to see prosperity. We recognise the changing nature, as I said, and we need to make sure that Brisbane City Council and our city plan can evolve to meet those needs and ensure we can continue that prosperity as well. The idea is to make sure, sorry, I've gone one ahead, is to make sure that we renew our areas as well to make sure we're globally competitive, locally resilient. And we think having all of these together, actually, we can work across Brisbane. So we have some specific areas within the industrial strategy and also, as I said, around the southeast Queensland as well. So the first one I'll talk about is the urban enterprise areas. So an urban enterprise areas are those that are formerly strategic inner city industrial areas. They have a big role in commercialising ideas from our knowledge corridors, which you will be familiar with the Cross River Rail and the work that the council and the state have been doing together. There'll be a lot of bespoke products or uses that use service businesses and residents. We're envisaging that some of these areas could have some small scale residential. So that will allow the developers to get some financial gain to assist the industrial side of the site as well. It'll also give a whole of life aspect to the type of industrial development we want to see in the inner city. We think it should be close to a significant concentration of highly skilled workers. Proximity to knowledge corridors will definitely be needed as well. And obviously high amenity and service. And that's when we start talking around what exactly is the amenity for the workers as well. When we're talking about our major industry areas or MIAs, that will be a mix of industrial uses, including some heavy industries. So over time, we'll see again, knowledge and technology will change the way that manufacturing, warehousing and distribution works. And if they're to be successful, we do need to give greater attention to the worker amenity, the provision of services to meet the diverse working population, what they get on a day-to-day business, but also where they're living and how close they're living as well. There's got to be a greater emphasis in the MIAs around sustainability in infrastructure and building, including energy efficiency and climate resiliency. So we need to make sure that accessibility is critical, and that is relying less on private vehicles, making sure that we have public transport infrastructure, for example, to these areas as well. Most of these renewal areas will be focused on conversion of older building stock, and we will be looking at the ways we can increase the flexibility around building heights and hours of operation to support modern operational standards as well. Then we've got our other areas, which are just the ones that remain that are not in the inner city, in the urban areas, and not other mixed industrial areas, but they're also still pretty important to servicing the needs of residents and businesses. So there's a spread of these across the city in pockets that will have an important ongoing function as we go through to a global Olympic city. We also need to nurture them as productive areas to ensure that they can support the commercialisation and those startups and the new ideas and innovation that we want to see into the future as well. So our next step is that, as Gail mentioned, we're currently out to consultation along with Amendment K as well, open until the 16th of August. You're all at home now. Hopefully you have plenty of time to get in your submissions on this as well. Encourage you to have your say. We will be going through those submissions. Hopefully there's many of them, and we hope to finalise that draft strategy by the end of 2021. Thank you very much.
Firstly, thank you so much for Deputy Mayor for that great presentation. I'd now like to invite Stephen Mason and Daniel Bracken to join the panel discussion. Stephen is a principal planner at RPS. He has 20 years experience in the development industry, has a particular interest in the industrial sector. His project portfolio includes some of the Southeast Queensland largest highly automated distribution centres, food and beverage manufacturing facilities, logistics and lower impact industrial facilities, and master planned industrial estates. Recent projects include Brewdog's Brewery at Murarrie, expansion and upgrades of Coca-Cola Amatil's operations at Richlands, and Asahi, Linfox, Woolworths distribution centres in the Logan Motorway Corridor. Dan is Goodman's General Manager for Queensland, with total assets of $51.8 billion and 18.5 million square metres under management. Goodman is one of the largest listed industrial property groups in the world. He's responsible for a stabilised portfolio of approximately $1.9 billion and a development project pipeline of over $900 million. He has over 20 years experience in the commercial property sector and has developed over 600,000 square metres of new commercial and industrial properties for companies such as DHL, Coles, Australia Post, TNT, Ryobi, Linfox, Pioneer and Goodyear, worth in excess of $1.5 billion. He developed the Rose Hill Industrial Estate, which has won both the Property Council of Australia's Best Business and Industrial Park and also the Australian Property Institute's Environmental Development Award. He's also the Deputy Chair of the PCA's Industrial Committee. We will be taking questions. I know I have quite a few. As I mentioned earlier, Di Curry and Peter Harwood from Council will also be joining the Q&A discussions. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A panel that's on your chat function, and I will direct the questions to the speakers. So I'm going to begin by asking the first question. The PCA, of course, welcomes the Council's review of the industrial strategy, and one of the things that stood out to me in the draft strategy was the emphasis on flexibility and the evolving nature of the industrial precincts. And the pandemic has highlighted, I guess, the need for us to be able to pivot quickly. My first question I'm going to direct to Dan and Stephen. Why is flexibility in our industrial zonings and levels of assessment important? And what should it look like in practice? I'll start with you, Dan.
Oh, look, thanks, Gail, and thanks to Deputy Mayor for her time. Flexibility is really key to employment and investment. Companies need certainty before they invest their money. They want to see a clear pathway and direction and time frame for the approval of their new investment or facility. And if there's too many restrictions or limitations, they'll simply look either elsewhere or go elsewhere. So the new strategy, which includes more flexibility, is a fantastic pathway forward.
Stephen?
Hi, yes, thanks, Gail. Yeah, look, I can absolutely echo what Dan said there. I think from the consulting side, we have clients come to us who are weighing up, you know, do they come to Brisbane? Do they go to the Gold Coast corridor? Do they establish in down south somewhere instead. And very frequently, that's one of the big questions: is in which jurisdiction am I able to get my approval quickest? In which jurisdiction is there the least risk? So I think, yeah, maximising our flexibility about what people can do in various zones and making the planning process as simple as possible, maximising accepted and code accessible development. That's a major bonus for drawing people to Brisbane.
Krista, how open is council to extending that flexibility further?
I look very open to it. We want to see the best outcomes for the city. I think this is why you're seeing Amendment K, because there was already some opportunities to be more flexible in our industrial strategy from just 18 months ago. And we are all about amenity and opportunities to really invigorate these areas as well. I don't think that the old industrial areas, I talked about, repurposing the old industrial sites. They don't have to look like old industrial sites. And I think that's the opportunity we have with technology and advancements. What we know now about climate friendly buildings, what we know about how people want to work and how they want to spend their day. I think they don't need to look like old industrial sites. So let's think about the flexibility of the built form as much as what happens on site as well to get a good outcome.
Great. The next question is from one of our committee members that was submitted earlier. The draft strategy notes a rise in demand for warehousing and logistics due to an increase in online shopping. Given that large parts of our established industrial areas like Wacol, Rockley, Hammond, Heathwood and Geebung contain large areas of industry C-zone land, which does not allow warehouse use, how does the strategy seek to match supply with the expected market demand? And I guess to put it another way, how does council view having flexibility for warehousing and manufacturing coexist? Krista?
Yeah, well, that one was for me. Yeah, we're looking at all of those, which is why we're and I'll probably throw to Di to do a little bit more work on that, but that's why we're trying to move away from this idea of us industrial A, B and C and have that flexibility around strategic inner city areas, MIAs, and then other areas as well. But look, we have definitely recognised that warehousing is something that is definitely becoming more important, and that's probably where we get to that discussion about what is the stuff that we may not see in industrial C in the capital city anymore, and what does that look like when we go to a regional aspect as well when we look at industry. But I'd love to throw that to Di for the technical on that one as well, if Di's online with us.
Good morning, certainly am. I think the other thing that I would add there is the changing nature of retail in particular is also changing around warehousing needs. So we spent quite a bit of time last year working with our industry partners in quite open conversations to say, tell us about what those changes are. So, as we're seeing faster deliveries and delivery vehicles out and around quite a lot more, we're also seeing a changing nature of that warehousing relationship. So it is one we're looking at really seriously in terms of where are the best locations for users across the city and how do we maximise in particular the inner city really quite rare and valuable land. So you'll notice in the strategy we've also looked at multi-storey and how that might work. And I suspect we'll come back to that later in the morning. We're looking at how we can maximise the use of that land and of course maximise the benefits for the city and for the landowners.
Stephen, what's been the experience of your clients in Industry C?
Yeah, thanks, Gail. I think it has presented some challenges over time that Industry C has sort of been quite locked up just for heavy impact industry, for high impact industry. Even in locations where historically precincts have developed for logistics or warehousing uses or lower impact industries, and then over time, they have sufficient separation from residential areas, whatever, that they can support high impact industry. But with zoning's changed, it's actually precluded those historic businesses from expanding or renewing their facilities. I think even just when a client finds a site that is of sufficient size that it can accommodate their very large scale warehouse, but the zoning's not correct, it's just made for sort of more protracted planning processes and uncertainty, like Dan talked about at the beginning. So I think increasing that flexibility. I often think in industry C, why can't you allow the low order users as well as the high order users? Much the same as in a principal centre in a retail setting, you can allow 1 and 2 story buildings or 20-story towers. So yeah, I think the flexibility that Krista and I talk about is welcome. Yeah.
One of the proposed major K amendments is to introduce some thresholds to allow for high impact logistics distribution uses in industry zone C zone precincts. Krista, how do you seek to align the Amendment K changes with the 2021 Brisbane Industrial Strategy?
Yeah, well, that is interesting. There's a lot of them that are in there as well, and Amendment K will go into the industrial strategy. And obviously, we've got a lot of things we need to align at the moment because we also have had a TLPI thrust upon us in the midst of this as well. So we are looking at Amendment K is actually the amendments out at the last industrial strategy. We don't see them as being conflicting in what we're going through as well. But that's why we're asking everybody to give us their feedback as well. That's where we got to Amendment K from. But we do think that there is an opportunity to make sure we address those issues. And look, we're seeing the changes already. We're seeing a 24-hour warehouse happening within, 7 or 8 Ks from the CBD around residential areas because of the way technology can manage that at the moment. So I think we can work through those conflicts on a case-by-case basis. But I think Amendment K is not contrary to what we're doing with the industrial strategy, and we'll step in with the process as well.
Yeah.
Do you think the Amendment Ks go far enough? Dan, I might throw that one to you.
Oh, look, where we're looking at is, I think there's been a misconception that in Industry C, users who are typically distribution or heavy logistics are perceived as not very big job creators. And I think that's something that's slowly it's a bit of a falsehood. What we're finding is our new customers who are going to automation are actually producing more jobs. So if we take a look at our distribution centres like Amart Furniture, your Kmarts and your distribution centres, compare that to our new Australia Posts, our DHLs, our FedExes, they actually employ many more staff members. So for instance, at the moment, we're building Amazon's facility in Sydney, their major facility. It sits on a 50,000 square metre footprint, same as Amart Furniture. Amart Furniture will have about 300 jobs. Amazon will have 1,500 jobs minimum, possibly rising to 2,500. And that is an fully automated warehouse. And there's just this miscalculation that automated facilities mean less jobs, and in numerous circumstances it actually means more jobs. So the flexibility that council is looking at by allowing logistics 24 hours users or warehousing and distribution users in Industry C is a great step forward. The restrictions of 15,000 square metres though are a little concerning. You have facilities like what we've got at Pinkenba at the moment, where Amazon, Australia Post, DHL are all commingling, and they're in small facilities of 4,000 square metres. And I think one thing that we'd like to look at is don't stop small businesses growing. If you've got a small online e-commerce retailer who needs replenishment 24/7, I think you should be able to co-locate these together in Industry C. That will create jobs and create growth. So we don't. So one of our concerns is just limiting GFA. I think under the current Amendment K is to 15,000 square metres. We do think that should possibly be reduced, or should be reduced, or maybe made up of smaller users. So, but it's a good first step.
Yeah, look, can I just add on to that, Gail? And just when you said that major case not going far enough, I think that's probably why you're seeing, well, it is why you're seeing a new industrial strategy overall, because any amendment gets to this point, that means we've been working on that for 12 months. So if we've been working on that 12 months, think about where we were this time last year or early at the beginning 2020 when we started Amendment K. So that's why amendments do take quite a while. And look, we know that Major K allows for more flexibility in warehousing, as Dan said, but we are looking for higher order jobs as well. And we know big logistics can be high impact. That is impact, see, if it's 24/7 and there's very large vehicles. So we're working through all of that. But any amendments become a little bit time sensitive when they do take so long to get through council and state processes that are under the legislation as well. So hopefully these two in comparison gives you the last industrial strategy with Amendment K and what we're going to as well. So hopefully everybody's looking at putting submissions for both of these as well and reading them in tandem for that reason.
We have a question from online. The urban enterprise areas propose denser and broader uses, even residential, and the suggestion is that Amendment K would seem to contradict this and reinforce more typical industrial. Does this create confusion? I guess that one's for the council.
Yeah, it does. Look, Gail, it absolutely does. And I think that's exactly what I am talking about. It is a little confusing at this point of time. And that's why we made sure we kind of got them out at the same time, because we knew that a lot of people would be looking at Amendment K going, what? This is not what you've been talking about. That's why I'm saying you need to read them together. Amendment K was something that started at the beginning of 2020. Things have definitely changed. We are happy to look at larger sites and see that amenity, particularly in those inner urban areas, on what residential might look like. So you can live and work and then have the amenity play in your local areas as well. And we have seen this in some of our MIA areas out in Clomesley and stuff being done extremely well. Unfortunately, we have a TLPI on that at the moment, so we'll work through that process. But we have assurances from the state government that moving through this industrial strategy and getting the submissions in and the support from the industrial community will go a long way to making sure that they're comfortable with our strategy so we can override that TLPI.
Stephen, did you have anything more you wanted to add there on the Amendment K in respect of industry Sealand?
I think I would just echo again. Dan covered it very well, that we don't want to stymie smaller businesses who historically have operated in those areas from upgrading, expanding in place, not having to move from their premises where they are, where their employees live close. So I think, yeah, Amendment K, the easing to allow 15,000 square metre warehouses, very welcome. Very encouraged to hear Councillor Adams saying that, in response to the new strategy, that will continue to be progressed to further enhance that flexibility, because I think we definitely want to, make sure existing historical businesses that have operated in those areas can continue to expand and others like them establish around them, so you get those nexus of uses happening.
Might move on now to the amenity of workers and the provision of lifestyle options within industrial precincts is highlighted in the strategy. To what extent do you think the vision for industrial renewal and enhanced amenities are required, and in which industrial precincts do you envisage these being most needed? Krista? You're just on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my mouse to take it off mute. Sorry. Look, I think we've been doing this for decades in Brisbane. Have a look at what Newstead looks like now and the gasworks and all of that. To say that they were industrial, that totally reformed into changed into residential, yes, but there then has to be this halfway between the fully residential and the industrial as well. So there's no reason there can't be parks, pocket parks, green space. We talked about green buildings, but tree-lined boulevards and places for eating, and I'm talking about places for eating that are not your little, your dirty Bay Marie takeaway that is there and open from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then there's nothing else. They need to be places that people are wanting to go to work because it's a vibrant and exciting place. And I think we were doing really well getting that mix down in the Clomesley precinct, and I think there's some opportunity in some of our inner urban areas as well to do that. And that amenity will make the skilled workers want to come and work in Brisbane. And that's what it is. It's about attracting the skilled workers as well.
Dan and Stephen, what sort of amenities are your tenants and clients looking for? Might start with you, Dan.
Oh, look, I think as we progress in the future, customers always want a level of amenity, and if you want to provide better jobs, they expect better amenity. I think the urban enterprise areas is a fantastic way of reinvigorating some suburbs, which you could see will probably go down and could be possibly obsolete. And you see around the world these great places which, as Krista says, can blend in industrial with technology, with office and some residential areas. So I think providing flexibility is key. And if you've got a workforce there and you have the planning platforms to allow amenity will come, and it will get better. It will be higher quality. You can see it starting coming around most of our areas, but obviously there's if you're in an office building or if you're in manufacturing or distribution, you shouldn't be given a poorer level of amenity just because you're out in an industrial area. So our customers are seeking improved amenity all the time.
And Stephen?
Yeah, I think we're seeing with the concept designs that come across our desk as we're seeking approvals, and then as it gets built, looking out, going and visiting sites, that the white collar employee component of manufacturing and distribution is increasing with automation. Come electrical engineers and all the rest of it to oversee things. So both our blue collar workers and our white collar workers, I think, deserve a nice work environment, just the same as anyone who's in the CBD or a centre. That means both, a nice outlook from where they sit in their, in the little office component of the manufacturing facility, but also the same access to, nice retail, cafe, lunch, coffee options, being able to go to the gym before work or after work, just the same as someone who works in the CBD or Chermside or Mount Gravatt or wherever else. So, I think just those same amenities that people who work elsewhere have, I think, is what people are after.
Stephen touched on then. What's everyone's thoughts on sport and recreation being in industry areas? Dan?
Well, I think you just need to drive around it. It already is there. I suppose some of the steps that you can see in the industrial strategy probably opens up the door for what is probably common sense. If we drive around, a lot of gyms and fitness places are in industry areas. Is it right? It probably is. It services, it seems to do well. It's not our end game, but I think they could live certainly in those areas. And
Krista, is that? Oh, sorry, Stephen, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would agree there. We've acted for a few, gym operators over time, small group personal training, and it is actually quite hard to find a place in the city for those users to go. High order centres, I think probably the rents and things can be prohibitive, given that has to get passed on to members. And industry areas do seem to be one of the places where they gravitate to. That makes a lot of sense to me. They do make a bit of noise, they play music, they drop weights, but also they're not big. So a 200, 300 square metre gym is not really going to be big time taking away valuable industrial space from others. And so I think it's helpful that we find a place in the city where they can easily operate. I don't think they're a major detractor from our industrial areas. I think they go to help the amenity stuff we were talking about before.
It's a very, very, very small slice of the pie.
Yep.
I was just going to say, you guys are talking about gyms, and I agree with you. And I, particularly as a local council, I have some issues with gyms that drop rates right beside medical centres and stuff like that as well. But when we talk about sport and rec, it's not about just your gyms. And look, I take Steve's point before. People who work in industrial areas want to have end of facility change rooms and a gym to go to before or after and things like that. That is the amenity we're talking about. But we also have sport and rec in the city, like gymnastics and dance groups. They also take large floor plate areas, which are becoming more and more tricky across the city, as well as when we have no greenfield spaces left as well. So we're trying to get a balance with those type of sport and rec as well. Obviously, we don't want them taking out industrial C sites that we know we need for those higher order, louder noise, whatever the reduction of residential amenities some of those may bring. But in areas that have been known as A and B, we need to look at where the flexibility for that is, because they also employ a lot of people. They also make you a livable city, and they do need large floor plates. So we're trying to get that balance as well.
And car parking ratio reductions has been a welcomed part of the draft changes. Dan and Stephen, is that reflective of what the industry needs? I might start with you, Stephen.
Yeah, look, I think the reduction in rates for warehousing, for large-scale warehousing in Amendment K, that's going to be very welcome. I think there will be people out there who are saying, no, that rate is still more than the way I operate my business or the way our distribution centre operates. That rate is still higher than what we would need in practice. So I think the proposed reduction in the taps code is welcome. I think I am hoping that going forward, just because that's been changed, that now won't be absolutely line in the sand and can never cross it, but that we can still work with council. We still have a performance-based planning system, and I think in industrial, one size doesn't fit all, and there are always going to be some places with very high automation where we can demonstrate that the car parking demand is quite low. I think we will still have other places where our clients, the proponents, will come to me and say, no, based on our staff numbers, we know we're going to need more cars than that. And I've also worked on approvals where we have provided car parking in excess of the city plan rates. So I think my main thing in there is welcome the reduction in the acceptable solution. Just want to make sure we can continue to work on a performance-based, case-by-case basis with council into the future where it's needed.
Dan, did you have anything to add there?
Very eloquently put by Steve. That's exactly right. Our customers, I think it's a great next step. Council would be sick of us providing our traffic engineers reporting. So it's a very smart step by council, and a performance-based solution still needs to be there because you do find the odd customer who will need it. And in reverse, we do have multiple customers who will be overparked. So that flexibility is something that needs to be retained.
Will dispensation for car parking still be able to be applied for? I don't know whether this is one for you want to throw to Di or Peter, or do you want to answer that one, Krista?
So what dispensation? Well, I think Steve said it's a performance outcome planning system still. So we always look on a case-by-case basis, and it's never been a line in the sand when it comes to car parking on these type of applications. We need to look at the use, and Dan just talked about the traffic management plans and stuff like that, but it's also what the use of the building is as well. And we'll also always use that performance outcome when it comes to the car parking. You just need to remember that right now, if you're about to build some building that's going to be there for forevermore, the use may only need that many car parks. We've also got to balance up what the uses may be in the future as well, and get somewhere in between that if you're suggesting far reduction in car parks as well. So performance-based makes it possible to definitely work with the team.
Question for Stephen and Dan. What do you think of the plans for the strategic inner city industrial areas and the urban enterprise areas generally, which are intended to have that high niche manufacturing businesses? What are your, within sort of that in urban environment situation, what are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, I think it's another great step. When you take a look at the strategy in Amendment K, it shows that council are looking at being liberal in their interpretation, opening up flexibility, and that will create a pathway to more jobs and investments. The urban industry area, the urban enterprise areas, I think is a great step. You see that around the world where you have these funky areas. You actually see it in South Sydney at the moment, where you have advanced manufacturing, still underlying industrial uses, mixed in with residential, mixed in with service operators. It's a real great opportunity where we enliven what could be redundant areas and really engage with the community. So if anything, I thought they could be expanded to other suburbs because if you're not eradicating the underlying industrial uses, I think it's a great way to enliven development and investment in those areas.
If we've got residential in those areas, how do we protect against, I guess, that potential for reverse amenity issues? Stephen, I might throw that one to you.
Yeah, sure. And I think in answering that, I might just say I fully agree with Dan. I think the innovation being talked about for these areas is very exciting. I think we're already so. In the industrial strategy, one of the key tenants councils identified there is for renewal. I think this will aid that. I think we're already seeing that sort of renewal happening in those inner city areas. That the example that's probably prominent in a lot of people's minds, or just as they drive around, is the the microbreweries or the gin distilleries that are starting to establish in some of these areas. So we are seeing, even people drawn to them after hours to participate in those venues. I think going broader mixed use is the next logical step. We've done it in our centres that once upon a time were just places of businesses and workforces, and you now live there as well. I think this is the next logical step. I think we've also shown in Brisbane that we can be innovative and very good at reverse amenity provisions. I think Brisbane City Council kind of led the way with the Fortitude Valley Entertainment Precinct provisions about managing noise between nighttime venues and apartments. I see no reason why we can't, between council and industry, come up with very workable provisions that maintain the primacy of industry uses in those inner city areas, but still invite offices, some residential at level 2 and 3 into those areas. And I think in turn that will actually facilitate and speed up that renewal process that council's talking about.
I'm very conscious of time, so this is throw the final question out there. One of the action items that's been identified in the strategy is for council and BETA to champion and promote Brisbane's industrial capabilities and opportunities, essentially why businesses should set up shop here. How do we do this? A small question for everyone. I'll start with you.
Maybe I'll start with how we're starting and looking at that anyway. So as most of the people online should know, we've always had the industry growth and industry growth team within Brisbane EDA. We're set up all now within the business hub for all business expansion and work and promotion, and that's at the back of the Old Regents Theatre, if you're not familiar with that, in Queen Street. But the industry growth and trade team that we'll be working within the business hub are going to be tasked with exactly what you're talking about, making sure that they're the one-stop shop. If people are coming in to invest in Brisbane, if people are looking for sites in Brisbane, or they have a site and they want to have a chat about what type of other businesses are in Brisbane, that's a concierge service there for any business from small, medium to large, but with an actual unit of people in there that are in industry growth and trade as well. So Brisbane Economic Development Agency will be working closely with the strategic planning team and the economic development team to make sure that it's very easy to do business in Brisbane, but we also promote the opportunities we have in the industrial area. And we've just done a prop tech aggregator at the beginning of this year, which was extremely successful, and we'll be doing that again. And a lot of that prop tech came within the industrial sector, so it's very exciting.
And Dan, what do you think will draw industrial enterprise to Brisbane?
Oh, look,
what is drawing them?
The Brisbane Hub, which is in Queen Street, is a fantastic facility. But if you take a look, Brisbane itself is a massive city and a massive employment generator. So the main key things are having planning pathways in place, flexibility, and limit restrictions. If you do those three things, business will come. If you put up limitations, they will look elsewhere. But I think this is really good next steps by council, both with Major Amendment K and the industrial strategy, to bring flexibility, open up the planning pathway, and you will find that's going to create a lot of investment. So is it perfect? Of course not, but that's why we're going out to consultation at the moment. But it's a good pathway to certainly spur on the investment.
And Stephen, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
Oh, look, I can echo that as well. I think from the planning consultancy side, we see very often, the client, they come to us, hey, we need to build one of these. We're looking at Brisbane, we're looking at Newcastle or Gold Coast, and they're literally weighing up which jurisdiction is going to be easiest. So I think everything in Amendment K and in the strategy itself about enhancing the flexibility, that to me is it. Just to be able to say for council, for us to be able to say to people, no, in Brisbane it's easy. You're code assessable, you're accepted. The zoning is flexible, and then the amenity and the renewal stuff. That's going to be icing on the cake as well.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much for our speakers. We really appreciate your time and your insights on that. Just a reminder to everyone, the consultation periods for major K amendments, consultation ends on 6 August and for the industrial strategy on 16 August. And I know both council and the Property Council are encouraging everyone to provide feedback. We understand this wasn't the intended mode of delivery of this presentation, but I think it's been a fabulous presentation by our speakers. So thank you again. Everyone enjoy your day and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.